Hey, what's up, guys? Today, I want to talk about the difference between Google and Facebook because I know a lot of you are trying to decide exactly which platform is the best for you starting out, and that really depends on a few different factors. So, I wanted to go through both platforms and go through those factors to see if we can decide what's a better fit for you based on this video. So, first, you need to understand which platform is built for what. All right. So with Google, you're built more for intent. Okay. So understand that Google's advantage is that your customer is actively seeking junk removal or the service near them, and they are actively looking for you, which is really your ideal customer, right? Because it's someone who has a high level of intent. They want it done now, and they want it done bad enough to where they went out of their way to look for it. The downside to Google is its costs, all right? So if Google was cheap, everyone would be on it because it's the exact customer that we're looking for. And that's why most people at some point do run Google ads or have a focus on Google. On Facebook, it's a little different. Facebook, you're never going to have that same level of intent, because nobody gets on Facebook and says, I'm going to look for junk removal today. That's not how the platform works. People don't go to Facebook for that. However, Facebook can get you in front of someone who recently searched and had that intent, or you may hit somebody at the right place, right time who hasn't searched it yet, and your ad came across their feed. The advantage to Facebook is on its branding, as well as its costs, because you can advertise at a much lower cost on Facebook and see results than you can on Google. All right. So in your position, if you're a junk removal company who is looking for work immediately and has a decent marketing budget, let's say you're not afraid to lose anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000. If that's the case, then I would say that Google is going to be your best route in most areas, because you have the budget capable to spend on Google, and you should, if done correctly, immediately be getting phone calls of people who need junk removed now. If your budget is lower than that, and let's say you're more comfortable with spending $300, $400, $500, $600, somewhere around that range, Google is most likely not your best bet, because you'll blow through that money pretty quickly. And in return, if you don't see quick results with that money, you may end up losing it and maybe not getting conversion on those calls or whatever the case may be. And now you're kind of back to square one and you lost money. So you may prioritize Facebook higher because you could spend less. But keep in mind that Facebook is going to take a little bit more time in most regions, most markets. But that's still going to be a better bet for you at that budget. With Google, it's going to be very hard for you to compete at a budget of about $500. At least on Facebook, you're going to make sure that you get in front of a lot of people in your target market if you're doing it right. You'll have the opportunity to get in front of people who need junk removed. It's just with Facebook, you're not going to get those calls. You're not going to get people who have the same level of intent in most instances than you will on Google. So understand the difference between the two. Now, that's not to say that one is better than the other, because it really depends on your situation, your market, and the budget that you have available. All right. My recommendation is always Google if you have the budget. I do think that you'll move a lot faster at Google if you have a proper sales process and you know how to close a deal. Then that's the best way for you to get on the phone with someone who needs junk removed and then handle that job. Facebook's strength is more so in its branding than anything else, because what Facebook can do that Google can't is it can get you in front of people who aren't actively searching for junk removal. That way, when they do need that service down the road, or perhaps you get in front of them before they've even actively searched it, now you've had a chance to get in front of them before anyone else. And branding is very underrated, in my opinion, even though it's more of a long-term play. If you're looking at business from, the right lens, I do think you should be looking after your business, not just for right now, but in 6 months and 12 months down the road. And Facebook can be very helpful in that manner. But in regards to which one you start out with, especially at a limited budget, it really depends on those numbers there. As I mentioned, there are some markets where Facebook does really well, really, really well. So depending on your market, there is an opportunity to where even if you're at a lower budget, Facebook could do really well for you to where you can operate within that budget and get jobs. I have seen that. But in most cases, Google totally outperforms Facebook, especially on a short-term basis. Your best bet as you scale and you grow is to have them both working in unison. Because technically, as I mentioned, they're kind of doing different things. One, you're positioning yourself for a little bit of now, mostly in the future, and the other, you're positioning yourself for the people with the intent to do business right now. And they can interact and coexist into one and work together. But of course, that's not going to be for everybody, because now you're looking at a marketing budget that can accompany both platforms. Okay, so hopefully this kind of gives you guys an idea, not only of the difference between the two, because a lot of times people are looking at Facebook ads, and I hear this a lot, and they're saying, I haven't got any calls. And it's because they're running the wrong platform. Facebook, you might get a few calls, but the intent isn't really there, guys. If you're looking for phone calls right now, that's Google. You're on the wrong platform. You're not going to get as many calls on Facebook because they didn't actively seek you. They're not at that stage of the buying cycle yet. So I really wanted to bring that to light. And again, as I mentioned, you may not have the budget for Google to run those ads, and that's okay. Get yourself to the point where you can run those if that's what you're looking for. Those phone calls on a consistent basis when it's done right. But you can use Facebook to your advantage even early on and gain some traction. All right. And there's a few markets specifically, I've noticed the Midwest does really well on Facebook. So a few markets, if you're inside of them, that I've seen do really well on Facebook. Cincinnati, it's a market that does very well on Facebook. I've seen some areas in Kentucky do pretty well. Lexington, one of them. Chicago has done really well on Facebook for us. So Midwest tends to do pretty well, that area. There's some others. We've seen Phoenix perform pretty well on Facebook. However, if you're in Phoenix, I highly suggest Google for Facebook. Even if it's performing well, Google is a night and day difference. Performs much better. So those are a few markets that we've seen Facebook do pretty well in. So it really depends. Every market is different. What works in New York City is not just going to be a copy and paste and work in Los Angeles. That's just not how it works. So hopefully this gives you guys a good feel for what would work best for you in your business right now and what to expect out of the platforms. If you are running Facebook ads, another mistake that I see a lot of times, and I kind of mentioned this with the calls, I wouldn't run call now ads on Facebook. I would not. Again, I don't think they're in that stage of the buying experience yet to where they're looking to call. If so, they would have just gotten on Google and gotten phone numbers. All right. Facebook, you're going to be better off with either lead form submissions, which have kind of died off in the past year. I would suggest more of a messenger campaign. Those tend to do the best on Facebook ads. Make sure you're active, responding quickly. You don't want somebody to message you and then you respond 6 hours later and now all of a sudden it could be too late, because that is a possibility. Same goes for Google, of course. When you get your phone calls, you want to answer. If you miss the call, you want to get right back to them, because chances are if you miss the call, they called the next person in line on Google. So you want to make sure that you're responding as fast as possible. So I hope this helps you guys. I'm going to cut it here. Once again, Blake from Top Dog Digital. If this video brought any value to you whatsoever, if you could give it a like, I would really, truly appreciate it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and share it, guys. I really want to provide as much value as I can to everyone in the junk removal industry and give you the knowledge that I've gained over the years. And I really hope this helps. Thanks.